Jeffrey Nero Hardy is a wrestler who's adored by the fans for his high-risk moves, daredevil attitude and his wacky dancing. He's been a beloved babyface throughout his whole career, well, except for that one time. And I'm not talking about 2003 in WWE, that doesn't count, alright? I mean his proper heel turn, which lasted for around 6 months in TNA. So what happened when Jeff Hardy, a wrestler who was clearly born to be a fan favourite, did a Hulk Hogan and turned heel for the first time in his career? Will this result in a boom in business for TNA just like Hogan in WCW? I'm sure most of you are already aware of how this ends with Victory Road 2011, but how did we get to that point in the first place? Well, no offence, but shut up and open your ear holes and you'll find out. Thank you for absolutely smashing my goal of 300 subscribers. We seem to be on 400 already. I don't know where you've all suddenly turned up from, but it's absolutely great. So let's keep pushing and hit that next goal of 1,000. So where does our story start then? With Abyss, of course. Well, this is going to be a rubbish story. You might as well all turn the video off now. Wait, please don't. Abyss had been acting weird for months, and this is suspicious because he was far from normal in the first place. He kept talking about "they are coming" and 10, 10, 10 all over the place. October the 10th, 2010 is the main event of Bound for Glory as Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy challenging for Mr. Anderson's world title in a triple threat. Late into the match, Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff turn up and help Jeff Hardy win the TNA title, as Jeff Hardy turns heel for the first time in his career. The next night on Impact, the faction Immortal is revealed, with Jeff Hardy as the top dog in the faction. His finisher was then renamed the Twist of Hate, and he cut promos about hating the fans, and he referred to himself as the Antichrist of professional wrestling. Jeff's first challenge for his world title was the giant Matt Morgan at Turning Point 2010, but Jeff emerged victorious. To see more about Matt Morgan's failures, check out my last video, 8 times Matt Morgan failed to win the big one. The next night on Impact, Jeff Hardy was given his very own world title belt, and what an ugly belt it was. It looked like it belonged to a little girl. It's all purple and glittery, and the middle plate is Jeff Hardy's face. This belt was from Jeff Hardy's personal designs, and it was pure vanity. Look, I don't remember AJ Styles being given his own belt, but what would it be anyway, a monster truck jumping over a moonshine still? It was around this time Jeff Hardy attacked Mr. Anderson for the first time, and he gave him a concussion.
The TNA World Heavyweight Champion. This is a piece that Jeff Hardy drew. I could probably stick a crayon up my ass, squat over a piece of paper, and draw a better picture than this.
At the next pay-per-view, Final Resolution, Hardy would beat Matt Morgan again, with Anderson as the special referee. It was at this event that the cracks in Jeff Hardy's private life were starting to appear. Reports from backstage in TNA were that the main event almost got pulled from the show, as Jeff Hardy was hammered backstage before the match. They considered having to actually strip Jeff of his world title. He could barely move, but someone decided to give the match the go-ahead. You have to feel a bit for Matt Morgan here. The match was surprisingly decent considering Jeff Hardy's condition, and it wasn't obvious that he was actually hammered in the ring. He wrestles about the same as he normally does, but the match wasn't great. Around this time, Jeff Hardy was in a lot of trouble with the law for drug possession charges. You have to question not only was what is Jeff Hardy smoking, but also TNA management for deciding to build the company around a wrestler whose life was more of a mess than Paul Gascoigne's. At the next pay-per-view, Genesis 2011, Jeff Hardy's brother Matt would debut for TNA and joined Fortune, defeating RVD in a match. Later on that night, Jeff Hardy would actually lose his world title to Mr. Anderson, who'd beaten Matt Morgan for the #1 contendership, and Anderson was now back to wrestling matches following his concussion. It was good to see TNA making the smart decision at the time and getting the world title off Jeff Hardy. As the weeks went on, the Hardy Boys would start teaming up for the first time on TNA, and this happened for the first time on the 13th of January 2011 as they defeated RVD and Anderson. Jeff and Anderson would feud over the next couple of weeks, with Jeff Hardy blaming his loss of the world title on Eric Bischoff. They had a rematch for the world title on the 3rd of February 2011, with Anderson retaining his title due to Fortune turning on Immortal and Styles attacking Hardy. As you can tell at this point, Jeff Hardy was barely the focus of any of the storylines, despite being the TNA World Champion, but he could still barely win any of his matches despite having all the help from Immortal. TNA was too busy focusing on the Immortal storyline with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, and should have spent more time focusing on their TNA World Champion Jeff Hardy. Jeff wasn't a terrible heel at all. This is not one of those sort of videos where I'm going to run him down. He did a good job, it's just they didn't give him any good storylines to work with.
A lot of people are confused. They think I don't give anymore, but I give them the concussions. And they're free. I hope to see you soon, buddy. I hope you get your chance real soon to give me a concussion, make me bleed, take my championship, because you can deserve it. You really do.
The next week, there was a match between Anderson and Morgan, which Anderson would win. For some reason, the repercussions here would whoever won the match would be facing Hardy at the next pay-per-view, despite Hardy actually losing twice in a row. I guess they just needed a heel challenger. Hardy was a grubby mess by this point. It was clear that he wasn't succeeding in getting all the fans to boo him, as the goth girls were just as crazy as ever for him, maybe even more so with him as a heel. In terms of in-ring style, Jeff didn't really change too much around. He still did the twist of hate and he did the swanton bomb. He didn't really change too much, he just kind of messed with the fans a little bit when he went high risk. He even still did the poetry in motion. He did a little bit more work on submissions and things like that. I think he could have done with a new finisher just to help get over that he changed his character completely. Maybe a submission-based finisher, but nothing ever came of that. The next pay-per-view was against all odds and it was Hardy v Anderson in a ladder match for Anderson's world title. Jeff would regain the title at the pay-per-view in a tame ladder match by his standards. This match also had a botched ending. You have to question TNA management for deciding to put the title back on Jeff Hardy with all his legal problems going on. The highlight in this match is Jeff Hardy actually has his own ladder. Look at it. Okay, so Jeff Hardy is now a two-time TNA champion. A few weeks later, Jeff is booked in a match with a mystery opponent who turns out to be the returning Sting. Sting beats Jeff Hardy for the world title, and this now leads to the moment that everyone is familiar with. Jeff Hardy challenges Sting for the world title at Victory Road twice. Hogan tossed away Jeff's ugly world title. Good. And then Sting blamed Hogan for how Jeff Hardy had turned out. It sounded like he was blaming Hogan for getting him hooked on crack. Jeff Hardy eventually returned to the company 5 months later as a face once again. He apologised to all the wrestlers and begged for another chance. Around this time, he would have to serve 11 days in jail for his previous drug charges, and he was also fined $100,000. He would eventually come full circle in TNA and he'd win the world title for the third and final time. The next 6 years in TNA went quite nicely for Jeff as he managed to stay clean and out of trouble and continue to wrestle well. We also got to see some great Jeff Hardy moments and we got to see him wrestle as Will-O-the-Wisp, Brother Nero with Broken Matt, and he also started doing an inner monologue. This proved to be my favourite moment of Jeff Hardy's career.
Kurt Angle's a machine. James Storm's great, but he drinks too much. Once an asshole, always an asshole. Bully Ray's mind's preoccupied. He's still dangerous.
And this proves that face or heel, drugs or no drugs, Jeff Hardy is whacked out of his freaking mind. So Jeff Hardy is currently still signed to a WWE contract, but as many of you may well know, Jeff was recently arrested for driving whilst impaired. So it looks like he's going back to his old ways, unfortunately. He was recently in court, but the trial has been delayed. So our wishes are with the Hardy family. We really hope Jeff can get back to his best again. I don't know, a lot of people couldn't forgive him for the Victory Road incident and felt like he'd let the whole company down. Did you forgive Jeff after the incident? Comment down below. And thanks for subscribing. Take care. Bye for now.